Hello and welcome. My name is Kevin Ashton and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make the ultimate sticky toffee pudding. A pudding full of caramel and toffee flavours that's light and moist and finished with my homemade toffee sauce. Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe and enjoy the video. Thank you. So on my counter I have the ingredients for my ultimate sticky toffee pudding, and one of the most important things about sticky toffee puddings is to use a good quality date such as Medjoul's. This is how it looks when they're whole and they have a stone inside them and it's not too sweet. And there I have 225 grams of dates chopped up with the stones removed. I have 1 vanilla pod, 2 large eggs, I have 150 milliliters of boiling water, I've got 180 grams of self-raising flour, I've got 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda, 90 grams of softened unsalted butter, 1 heaped teaspoon of mixed spices, 100 grams of soft brown sugar, 40 grams of caster sugar. We're going to use a tablespoon of black treacle, and finally 125 milliliters of whole milk. Now I'm using a 10-inch square brownie baking tray for my sticky toffee pudding, and it's also 1.5 inches deep. And although it's non-stick, I wanted to make sure that I could easily remove the sticky toffee pudding after it's baked, so I have lined it with baking paper or parchment paper and made sure that the parchment paper was buttered. So the first step is to put our 150 milliliters of boiling water onto our dates. It's going to soften them up, and we're just going to leave that in the water to soak, and they need to soak for at least 30 minutes. So next we're going to mix the dry ingredients together. So we've got our self-raising flour, we'll put our mixed spices in there, baking powder and our bicarbonate of soda. Make sure we leave none in the ramekins and just give that a good stir just to make sure it's completely mixed up. Next we're going to crack our 2 large eggs and just give them light beating. So next we want to split our vanilla pod. So you take a sharp knife and just gently split the vanilla pod all the way down. And we want to scrape out the seeds, the vanilla seeds, with your knife. And we want to put that vanilla seeds into our beaten egg. Make sure you get all of the seeds. Give that delicious hint of vanilla to our sticky toffee pudding. And once you have all the seeds out of the vanilla sugar, I don't throw the pods away. I keep a jar of caster sugar and I just chop up pods just roughly like this. And I put them into my caster sugar, and that gives me a wonderful vanilla aroma to my sugar, which I use for some recipes. Now I'm taking my butter, my 90 grams of unsalted softened butter, and we're going to mix that with our 2 sugars, our brown sugar and our caster sugar, and we want to beat this until it's creamed. So we'll lower the paddle on our mixer, and we want to turn this on a slow speed and cream it. So I've been creaming my sugar and butter for at least 5 minutes on a high speed, and you can see it's much lighter, but it's never going to be really white because you started off with mostly brown sugar. But that's creamed enough, and now we're going to add our treacle. So we're going to take 1 tablespoon, 1 good heaped tablespoon of black treacle, and you need also to have a teaspoon handy to make sure that none of the treacle remains on your measuring spoon. We need to take just a couple of minutes to mix the treacle into the sugar and butter on a low speed. So the black treacle has been mixed into the sugar and butter for 2 minutes, and you can see the sort of texture we have and the colour we have. And now we're going to start adding our eggs and flour. Now when we add the egg, we don't want to add all the egg at one go, otherwise it could split the mix. So we're going to alternate between the egg and the flour until we've incorporated all of the egg and all of the flour into the mixture. So it's important that you scrape down the bowl as you're doing this to make sure that it all gets mixed evenly. So now we're going to add our first amount of flour. So we'll just add maybe a quarter of the flour, and then we're mixing this on a slow speed to start with. So we're about to add the last amount of egg into our mixture. Well, I did want to show you the mixture. It's nice and light because we put a lot of air into it at this point, and we're then going to add the last amount of our flour, but that's what we're looking for at this stage. Make sure we get all the vanilla from our eggs into our batter. Now we're going to add the remainder of our flour. We're going to start this off on a slow speed, of course, to begin with, until the flour is incorporated, and then turn it up higher to make sure there's enough air in the mixture. Now we have all the egg and all the flour into our mix, and it's nice and well beaten, so it's nice and light. Now we're going to gradually add our milk on a slow speed. So this is the consistency at this point. And now we're going to finally add our dates. I'm going to scrape off the silicone spatula. Make sure I don't leave any of the mixture on the spatula. Now you can see the dates have really absorbed all that water, that boiling water that it was soaked in. And we're just going to drop the dates into the mixture and then give it a good stir to mix those dates into the batter of the pudding. So our mix is complete, and we're now going to fill our brownie dish with the batter. So whenever you're filling something like this, you want to start filling it from the centre. Make sure it gets evenly distributed throughout your baking dish. We want to obviously make sure we scrape down the bowl so we don't leave any of the mixture in our bowl. So I've preheated my oven to 170 degrees Celsius. That's if you have a fan, and if you don't have a fan you need to set it to 180 degrees. So the best way to make sure that the pudding batter is spread out evenly is to take a wet palette knife, and we're just going to start from the centre, and we're just going to spread it out, push it towards the corners to make sure the mix is evenly distributed. You don't want any mounds either at the edges or in the centre. You want it as flat as you can get it, but you don't want to do this for too long because you'll be taking the air out of the mixture. And that's it. Now we're going to bake it on the middle shelf for 30 to 35 minutes. If you want to make a great sticky toffee pudding, you have to make your own toffee sauce to serve with your sticky toffee pudding. And it's so easy to make, and here's how to make the best one. We've got 200 grams of vanilla sugar. Remember, the vanilla sugar is caster sugar that's been impregnated with the flavour of the vanilla pods. And then I've sieved the vanilla pods out just so I have the sugar. So I've got 200 grams of caster sugar. We've got 60 grams of unsalted butter. We're going to use half a tablespoon of black treacle, and we've got 250 millilitres of double cream. So the first step is to put our sugar onto the stove at a medium heat. I've got this on about 7, and you've got to be a little bit patient because it's going to take time for this dry sugar to start to melt. It's important when you're ever doing anything like this that you have a pastry brush in a cup with some water, because this will stop the sugar from crystallizing. So from time to time you just take a pastry brush and you just run it around the edges of the saucepan to prevent crystals from forming, which will stop your toffee sauce from crystallizing. You can now see that it started to caramelize. So we want to move the sugar around a little bit so we really get a clear idea of how far along the process is. And again, we're going to brush the edges with a wet pastry brush. So all the sugar has completely melted. It's a lovely colour. So now we're going to start adding the cream. You need to add the cream gradually because it's very violent when you add cold cream into hot sugar. See that wonderful, delicious toffee colour. At this point we want to turn the heat back down. And make sure all the sugar is completely melted before we start adding our butter and our treacle. Now we're adding our half tablespoon of treacle, which is going to be plenty because it's dark already naturally, but this will give it an extra depth of flavour to our toffee sauce. And we'll stir that in and it makes it really glossy. Now we want to add the butter, and you want to add the butter in little pieces, and make sure you stir the butter in and that it melts before you add the next amount of butter. At this point I've turned the heat completely off because there's enough residual heat in our toffee sauce to melt that butter. So here is the final toffee sauce with all the butter incorporated. It's absolutely delicious. It's absolutely silky and very shiny, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Our sticky toffee pudding has had 35 minutes in our 170 Celsius oven. We're just going to give it a quick prick with a toothpick, and the toothpick comes out clean so we know it's cooked. Looks absolutely delicious. We're going to let it cool down a little bit before we turn it out to cut it. So the sticky toffee pudding has been cooling down for about 10 minutes, which should make it easier to cut. We're going to just gently take it out and place it onto our cutting board, and it comes out very easily because we lined the baking tray with parchment paper. And we're going to cut this into 9 good sized portions. So we're going to get 3 columns one way and then 3 columns the other way to get 9 portions. So here you have our ultimate sticky toffee pudding, absolutely delicious, sitting in a pool of delicious homemade toffee sauce topped with a quenelle of sour cream. Enjoy.